It's important to ask yourself the same question repeatedly throughout the development of your work, especially when your work finds itself among the order of lofty things. When I tell others that my life purpose is to live for beauty, to live for art, for those things to take precedence over all the others which may challenge it, it's often met with a lingering second of hesitation. Perhaps they think that I'm vain, or maybe they're waiting for me to add something. I experience this liminal space of confusion and doubt because beauty and art are lofty things. They are ideas that are undoubtedly present among us, but hard to bring to earth because they did not originate here. So in order to find some kind of solid ground, I have to ask myself all too frequently, why beauty? Why art? And what does it mean to live for those things? I mean, what does that mean in life? From waking to sleeping, what does beauty consist of? I've been reading Beauty, A Very Short Introduction by Roger Scruton. Scruton distills so much of what is inaccessible about the philosophy of aesthetics. The language, the clear, unavoidable sport of it, and hilariously the logic which has attempted to codify something so unbelievably formless. When Roger Scruton talks about beauty and dissects many individual theories of it, we come to a lovely, simple aphorism which will do me quite well in this video. Beauty is about contemplation. It's not about possession or utility or even pleasure, even if beauty and art can also converge with these things, be mistaken for these things. It's about you and this beautiful thing, and only that thing, and nothing else will do but that thing. Beauty asks us to respond with contemplation. Art asks us to respond in this way too. And I know if we only give ourselves the permission, without the fear of being considered vapid or pretentious or even privileged, we may give ourselves the luxury of beauty, the luxury of contemplation. To contemplate, inspect, to muse, to nestle myself into the shell of my mind is something I hope to achieve in everyday life. I like to think. I like to be in my head. I like discussion and wonder. I also greatly revere the silence beauty brings me to. I can get lost in its distant personality. When you choose beauty, when you seek it out, you find ways, small ones lying around everywhere, to make beauty more accessible to you. Sometimes I'll eat a meal in a dress and heels, put on lipstick because I thought it looked good with my hair. Light has also been very important to me. So there's this intentional light interplay throughout our apartment at all times. I sit and eat a meal and look how this red light bulb reflects off of a Party City tinsel in the living room. Tinsel is cheap, but look at the spectacle of that. You don't need money. I look at how the shadows of the pillows and tinsel display themselves on the wall, and it's just an absolute delight to me. I look into the next room, littered with wine bottles and papers and books, and yet there's something earnest and ordered about it. I adore the way the curtain drapes over the sewing machine. It rests that way because there's no other way for the curtain to stay lifted. Only the sewing machine holds it up, oddly. And there's something elegant about that. It's a result of not having the proper tool, and yet something far more beautiful is the result. Roger Scruton would call these things minimal beauties. The beauties of everyday life, of our efforts, our sentiments, and our age. To achieve beauty, to make your life a work of art, you have to want it. It has to become sacred. It has to become part of your everyday life. If beauty does not have a breath of hesitation for you, much in the same way that you feel you need to be quiet in a church or a library, or that the discussion or experience of beauty has a proper time and place, then I'm afraid it's not for you. To live a life of beauty is extreme and has no linear path, no chronological sequence of steps to take. You are driven by hunger through dreams. But it can also be displayed in modest forms. Simple pleasures done with respect and given the proper amount of time leave room for contemplation. A task is no longer a task. Food that you intend to eat can be quite beautiful on the plate if you don't consume it quickly. Lighting a candle presents a beautiful ballet of shadows if the light you ignite is not intended for any specific purpose. Along with innumerable bottles of wine and Prosecco and champagne from over the years, I also have many corks, and some of them have inscriptions on them. These corks are not always to be thrown away, and I've always liked their wiry encasement, like frail armor. For a long time, we could not put anything on this middle wall because it's concrete, or we didn't have enough money, and we definitely couldn't drill into it. But these champagne corks are lighter than air, and a little putty would easily adhere them to the wall. Why not take what was initially in a drawer, a discreet capsule of memory, and display it in a modest way, our happiness, our past happiness? Why not display them, order them, and look at them? Think about the moment those corks hit the ceiling and the echoes of laughter. Beauty and contemplation has much to do with memory, and no art is created without remembrance. Such a beautiful thing can take us into the past, remove us from our body somehow, let the mind do the walking. Other beautiful things seek to remove us from the body through a present task, like finding flowers for a bouquet to enliven our living room. Because it's summertime, I have the privilege of being able to find almost all of our flora from sidewalks and in parks and trails. Much of what I had been using for our dining room bouquet were flowering weeds, with 2 or 3 hothouse blooms. But this time, I came across what felt like a small garden of these weeds, let to rise to human heights. I took some which had broken from the central stem, and still found myself with an enormous amount of flowers. I thrifted this vase, and I always feel a supreme sense of tranquility being able to fill it. Weeds or not, overgrown flora looks like a geyser coming out of this thing. I like adding in vines for a bit of chaos or flair. I'm certainly no expert on flower arrangement, but I feel that these are the first steps to what will be a dedicated hobby for me well into my old age. I also wish to learn the art of ikebana. Now, when the bouquet is finished how I like it, every time, because I love the way it looks, because I find the bouquet to be so beautiful, I look at it for a while. I prepare a small meal for myself and look. For me, I don't care what is happening, a beautiful thing commands my full attention, just for the pure enjoyment of scanning it over, trying to get every last drop of its form and character. Putting the bouquet together, the ritualism of it, the steps taken each time for such a thing to be possible, are so able to separate me from my body somehow. I forget where I am. I'm totally immersed in the task and immersed in the contemplation of my task, because it isn't a task. I choose to spend a good hour to make this bouquet. I look forward to it. I feel a duty to include this in my life. When I look at this bouquet, one I complete every 1 to 2 weeks, it's a representation of how I feel about beauty. I chose to honor it with these simple ceremonies, and it rewards me with itself. Beauty, art, and the contemplation required for them feels less menacing, feels less hedonistic, feels less unattainable in these moments. I truly feel that it is a misrepresentation to say that beauty is unattainable. Certain forms are, sure, whether it's a type of financial situation which can afford certain types of beauty, or whether it's a moral or virtuous beauty, which imperfect humans often falter in the face of. Beauty can be unattainable, but that's no reason to cast it off. There are minimal beauties, ones which do not tire us but revive us, which give us hope instead of dread. If you find beauty to be tedious or unattainable, then think that. Go ahead. Making your life beautiful or a work of art may seem ridiculous to you, something impossible. But I have found so many ways to let beauty in, through tattered shoes, through meager paychecks, through restriction. I wanted beauty, so I looked for it. I tried, and it found me. It found me through books, through the sound of crickets at the end of summer, through a melody drifting out of the windows of passing cars, through long walks that make your muscles hurt. I found it time and time again, because I chose it, and it chose me. I hope it chooses you.